You're just being dramatic again, my mother sighed, barely glancing up from her phone as I doubled over in pain at the breakfast table. Eat your breakfast and get ready for school. My name is Emily Parker, and at 16, I've been fighting a battle not just against my mysterious illness, but against my own family's disbelief. Mom, please, I whispered, clutching my stomach. Something's really wrong. The pain is getting worse. The room was spinning and black spots danced in my vision. My father slammed his coffee mug down, making me flinch. Enough, he snapped. Your mother and I are tired of these attention-seeking stunts. You've already made us late for work 3 times this month with your so-called emergencies. I tried to stand to prove I could push through like they wanted, but my legs gave out. I crashed to the floor, knocking over my chair. Instead of helping me up, my mother just rolled her eyes. And the Oscar goes to, she muttered. My younger sister Katie watched from across the table, her face a mixture of concern and confusion. At 12, she'd been taught to believe their narrative, that her big sister was just a drama queen looking for attention. This had been my life for the past 8 months. It started with fatigue and dizziness, then progressed to severe abdominal pain and unexplained bruising. Each new symptom was met with accusations and eye rolls from my parents. They were pillars of our community, my father a successful businessman, my mother head of the PTA. Their perfect daughter couldn't possibly be sick. Get up, Emily, my father ordered. You're going to school. I somehow made it to my feet, using the table for support. My vision swam, but I knew better than to complain. Last time I'd insisted on going to the hospital, I'd been grounded for a month for wasting their time and money. School was a blur of pain and exhaustion. My once perfect grades had started slipping, giving my parents more ammunition. See, this is what happens when you spend all your energy pretending to be sick instead of studying, they'd say. My best friend Olivia was the only one who believed me. She watched me deteriorate day by day, powerless to help. During lunch, I could barely keep my food down. You're getting worse, she whispered, watching me push my untouched sandwich away. You need to see a doctor. They won't take me, I replied, my voice hollow. They think I'm doing this for attention. That's when it happened. The pain in my stomach suddenly became unbearable. I tried to stand, but the world tilted sideways. The last thing I heard was Olivia screaming my name as everything went black. I woke up in the nurse's office with Mrs. Hanson, our school nurse, looking down at me with deep concern. Emily, I've called your parents, she said firmly, and this time they're going to listen. My parents arrived looking annoyed and embarrassed. We're so sorry about this, my mother started, her public face firmly in place. Emily has been. Mrs. Parker, Mrs. Hanson cut her off. Your daughter's blood pressure is dangerously low. She's showing signs of severe anemia, and those bruises on her arms are not normal. As a mandated reporter, I cannot let her leave without proper medical attention. My father's face darkened. Are you threatening us? No, Mr. Parker, I'm protecting your daughter. Either you take her to the hospital now, or I'm calling an ambulance. For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across my parents' faces. Their perfect facade was cracking. Fine, my father snapped. We'll take her. But when they tell us there's nothing wrong, you'll be hearing from our lawyer. The drive to the hospital was tense. My mother kept muttering about attention-seeking behavior, while my father gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles were white. I sat in the back seat, fighting waves of nausea, silently praying that this time someone would finally figure out what was wrong. In the emergency room, the doctor ordered immediate blood work. My parents sat impatiently, already crafting their angry speeches about wasted time. But when the doctor returned with my results, his face was grave. Mr. and Mrs. Parker, he said, his voice serious. We need to talk about your daughter's blood work. The look on his face made even my father sit up straighter. For the first time since I'd gotten sick, I saw fear in my parents' eyes. Something was very wrong, and this time they couldn't ignore it. The doctor's words hit like thunderbolts in the small examination room. Emily's blood work shows severe abnormalities. Her white blood cell count is critically high, and her platelets are dangerously low. We need to admit her immediately. My mother's perfectly composed facade cracked. What exactly are you saying? We need to run more tests, the doctor replied, his eyes fixed on me with genuine concern. But these results are consistent with leukemia. The word hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Leukemia. the thing I'd secretly feared during those long nights of unexplained pain, while my parents dismissed every symptom. My father stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. Our daughter was fine just months ago. She's been making up symptoms for attention, and now you're encouraging it with these dramatic diagnoses." The doctor's expression hardened. "Mr. Parker, I have your daughter's blood work right here. These numbers don't lie. If we don't start treatment immediately, your daughter's life is at risk." My mother's face had gone pale. But she was just being dramatic. You thought wrong," the doctor cut her off firmly. "And frankly, I'm concerned about how long Emily's symptoms have been ignored. How long has she been complaining of pain?" "8 months," I whispered, my voice barely audible. The doctor's jaw tightened. 8 months? 8 months of untreated leukemia? He turned to my parents, his professional demeanor barely containing his anger. "Do you understand what you've done by delaying medical care?" My parents stood there, speechless for the first time I could remember. The perfect image they'd worked so hard to maintain was shattering around them. Everything moved quickly after that. I was admitted to the oncology ward, where a kind nurse named Maria helped me settle in. She took one look at my bruised arms and exhausted face and promised, "We're going to take care of you now, sweetheart." My phone buzzed with a message from Olivia. "Mrs. Hanson told me what happened. I'm so sorry, Em. I knew something was wrong. I should have done more." I texted back with shaking hands. "You believed me." That was enough. My parents sat in a corner of my hospital room, looking lost and small. The perfect Parker family image was crumbling. My mother's makeup was streaked with tears she couldn't hide anymore, and my father's authoritative presence had deflated into something almost unrecognizable. The oncologist, Dr. Matthews, came in to explain my treatment plan. "We're looking at aggressive chemotherapy," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "The cancer has progressed significantly due to the delayed diagnosis." My father tried to interrupt, but Dr. Matthews held up her hand. "Mr. Parker, I need you to listen. Your daughter's cancer is advanced. If she had received medical attention when her symptoms first appeared, we might be having a very different conversation." The weight of those words seemed to physically hit my parents. My mother started sobbing while my father slumped in his chair, his face ashen. "I tried to tell you," I whispered, tears rolling down my cheeks. "I beg you to believe me." That night, as I lay in my hospital bed surrounded by beeping machines, my little sister Katie was finally allowed to visit. She crept into the room, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. "Emmy," she whispered, using my childhood nickname. "Are you really sick? Mom and Dad said you were pretending." I patted the edge of my bed, and she carefully sat down. "They were wrong, Katie. I've been sick for a long time." She burst into tears. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you. They said big sisters sometimes do things for attention, and I pulled her into a gentle hug, ignoring the pain from my bruised arms. "It's not your fault. You're just a kid. They're the adults. They should have known better." Outside my room, I could hear my parents arguing with Dr. Matthews about my treatment plan, still trying to maintain some control over the situation. But their voices no longer held the same authority. Their words were tinged with desperation and guilt. Maria came in to check my vitals, shooing Katie out with a kind but firm reminder about visiting hours. As she adjusted my IV, she noticed me wiping away tears. "You know what the strongest medicine is?" she asked, straightening my blankets. "The truth. It hurts at first, but it's the only thing that really heals." I nodded, understanding she meant more than just my physical illness. The truth was finally out, and while it was devastating, it was also liberating. No more being called a liar. No more dismissing my pain. No more pretending. As night fell over the hospital, I heard my mother crying in the hallway, my father's muffled voice trying to comfort her. How did we not see it? What kind of parents are we? That was the question that would haunt them for a long time to come. 3 months into my chemotherapy treatment, my life had transformed completely. The hospital became my new home, with its rhythmic beeping machines and the constant flow of nurses and doctors. My hair fell out, my body weakened, but strangely, I felt stronger than ever before. Not physically, but emotionally. My parents' transformation was even more dramatic. Gone was their perfect facade, replaced by something raw and real. My mother stopped attending PTA meetings, spending her days instead in my hospital room, desperately trying to make amends. "I brought your favorite books," she'd say, arranging them carefully on my bedside table. And I talked to your teachers about sending your assignments. Her voice would trail off, catching on the guilt that now constantly haunted her. My father's change was quieter but deeper. The man who once dismissed my pain now flinched at every wince, every grimace that crossed my face during treatment. I caught him crying in the hallway one night, talking to Dr. Matthews. I failed her, he sobbed, his voice breaking. I was supposed to protect her, and instead Dr. Matthews' response was firm but compassionate. The best thing you can do now is be there for her. She needs support, not guilt. The truth of my condition had spread through our community, shattering the perfect image my parents had worked so hard to maintain. Their friends, who once praised them as model parents, now whispered behind their backs. The judgment in people's eyes when they looked at my parents was unmistakable. But something unexpected happened amid all this chaos. Without the pressure to maintain appearances, my family began to heal. Not just me, but all of us. Katie became my fiercest protector. She'd march into my room with determination, armed with board games and stories from school. Jimmy Peterson said you were faking being sick, she announced one day, her chin held high. So I told him he was an ignorant bully and that he should educate himself about cancer. Just like Maria taught me to say. Maria, my favorite nurse, had become family in her own way. She was there during my darkest moments, during nights when the pain was unbearable and the fear overwhelming. You're the strongest person in this hospital, she'd tell me, adjusting my medications. And don't you forget it. Olivia visited every day after school, bringing homework and gossip and normalcy. She'd seen the truth all along, and now she made sure everyone else did too. She started a fundraiser at school for cancer research, wearing a bald cap in solidarity when I lost my hair. 6 months into treatment, Dr. Matthews called a family meeting. My parents sat rigidly in their chairs, holding hands so tight their knuckles were white. They'd learned to fear medical updates, carrying the weight of their delayed response to my symptoms. But this time, Dr. Matthews was smiling. Emily is responding well to treatment, she announced. The cancer cells are decreasing. It's still a long road ahead, but she's fighting hard. My mother broke down crying. Happy tears this time. My father just gripped my hand, unable to speak. However, Dr. Matthews continued, her expression serious. I'm recommending family counseling. What happened before Emily's diagnosis needs to be addressed. For once, my parents didn't argue or try to maintain control. They simply nodded, accepting that their perfect facade wasn't worth the price we'd all paid. The counseling sessions were hard but necessary. We talked about the pressure of appearances, about why they refused to see my illness, about how their denial had almost cost them their daughter. Slowly, painfully, we began to rebuild trust. 1 year after my diagnosis, I sat in Dr. Matthews' office for my regular checkup. My hair was growing back in soft patches, and my latest blood work showed promising results. You know, she said, reviewing my charts, when you first came in, I was angry at your parents. I've seen cases of medical neglect, but rarely from parents who cared so much about their children. They just cared about the wrong things. I nodded, understanding what she meant. They changed, I said quietly. We all have. That evening, my family gathered in my hospital room to celebrate my latest clean scan. Katie had made a card covered in glitter for my brave big sister. My mother brought real homemade soup instead of trying to pretend hospital food was just fine. My father sat quietly, but his eyes never left my face, as if still afraid I might disappear if he looked away. I'm sorry, he said suddenly, his voice thick. We should have believed you, should have listened. I know, I replied, reaching for his hand. But you're listening now. Sometimes the hardest truths are the ones that heal us the most. My illness had shattered my family's perfect facade, but in doing so, it had allowed something real and honest to grow in its place. We weren't perfect anymore. We were better than that. We were real. Maria popped her head in, smiling at our little gathering. Look at you all, she said warmly. Now that's what healing looks like. And she was right. We were all healing, not just from cancer, but from the lies we told ourselves about what family should look like. The truth had set us free, even if the path to it had been harder than any of us could have imagined. You're just being dramatic again, my mother sighed, not even looking up from her phone as I doubled over in pain on our kitchen floor. Get up and finish the dishes. I'm tired of your constant attention-seeking. My name is Emma, and at 16, I've been living with unexplained pain and symptoms for nearly 3 years. Every time I tried to tell my parents something was wrong, they dismissed it as teenage dramatics or attempts to get out of responsibilities. "Mom, please," I whispered, clutching my side. "It really hurts this time. Something's wrong." "Something's always wrong with you," she snapped, finally glancing up. "Your father and I have real problems to deal with. We can't keep indulging your imagination." I somehow managed to pull myself up, using the counter for support. The room was spinning, but I knew better than to mention that. Last time I complained about dizziness, they grounded me for making up stories to skip school. My father walked in, his face hardening at the sight of me leaning against the counter. "Emma, enough. Your mother and I are hosting the neighborhood association meeting tonight. I won't have you embarrassing us with another one of your episodes." Episodes, that's what they called the times I collapsed at home, or when they found me crying in my room from pain so severe I couldn't stand up straight. Everything was an episode or an act or attention-seeking behavior. "I think I need to see a doctor," I said quietly, knowing what the response would be. "We've been through this." My father's voice turned cold. "There's nothing wrong with you that better discipline wouldn't fix. Now finish those dishes and go to your room. I don't want to see any of your dramatic performances during the meeting." I nodded, fighting back tears. Crying would only make things worse. They'd take away my phone again, cut off my internet access, anything to teach me a lesson about manipulating them with tears. That night, lying in my bed, I could hear their voices floating up from downstairs. The neighborhood association meeting was in full swing, and my mother was doing her best impression of the perfect hostess. "Emma's doing so well in school," I heard her tell someone, her voice carrying through the heating vent. "Though she can be a bit emotional sometimes. You know how teenage girls are." I pulled out my secret notebook from under my mattress. Inside, I'd been documenting everything. Every symptom, every dismissal, every time they'd refused to take me to a doctor. The pages were filled with dates, times, and descriptions of pain so severe it made me see spots. My phone buzzed softly, a text from Ms. Martinez, my school counselor. She was the only one who seemed to believe something was really wrong. "How are you feeling? Did you tell them about what happened in PE today?" I collapsed during volleyball practice, the pain in my side so intense I couldn't breathe. The coach had wanted to call an ambulance, but I begged her not to. My parents would never forgive me for making a scene at school. "They didn't believe me," I texted back. "Said I'm being dramatic again." "Emma, this has gone on long enough," she replied. "I have a friend who's a pediatrician. She can see you tomorrow during your free period. I'll pick you up myself." My hands shook as I read her message. A real doctor, someone who might actually listen. "They'll never allow it," I wrote back. "They don't need to know. You're 16. In our state, you can seek medical care without parental consent if a school official accompanies you. I've already checked." I stared at her message, hope and fear battling in my chest. If my parents found out. Another wave of pain hit, so sharp it made me gasp. Through the vent, I could hear my mother laughing at someone's joke, playing her role of the perfect parent in her perfect house with her perfect family. "Okay," I texted Ms. Martinez, "tomorrow." As I lay there, clutching my notebook and trying to breathe through the pain, I had no idea that tomorrow would change everything. That one doctor's appointment would expose years of medical neglect and tear down my parents' carefully constructed facade. I just knew that for the first time in 3 years, someone was finally going to listen. The next day, Ms. Martinez's blue Honda pulled up 2 blocks from my house, exactly as planned. I told my parents I had early morning study group. Another lie to add to my notebook, but this one felt different. This one might actually save me. "You're very pale," she said as I slid into the passenger seat. "How bad is the pain today?" 7 out of 10. I replied, using the scale I'd read about online. "But I'm used to it." Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. "You shouldn't have to be used to it, Emma." Dr. Sarah Chen's office was nothing like I'd imagined. Instead of the cold, clinical environment I'd expected, her private practice was warm and welcoming. Soft music played in the background, and the walls were painted in calming blues and greens. "Emma," Dr. Chen said, extending her hand. She was younger than I expected, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. "Maria told me a little about your situation. Why don't you tell me what's been going on?" For a moment, I froze. Years of being dismissed and ridiculed had made it hard to trust, Hard to believe anyone would actually listen. But something in her expression made me pull out my notebook. I've been keeping track, I said softly, handing it to her. Every symptom, every time it gets bad. The dates, the pain levels, everything. Dr. Chen's expression changed as she flipped through the pages. The gentle smile faded, replaced by a focused intensity that made me nervous. You've been experiencing these symptoms for 3 years, she asked, looking up sharply. I nodded. And no one has examined you? Run any tests? My parents, I swallowed hard. They say I'm making it up. For attention. She set the notebook down carefully, too carefully, like she was controlling her reaction. Emma, I need to examine you. Some of these symptoms are very concerning. The examination was thorough. Dr. Chen listened to my heart, pressed carefully along my abdomen, and asked questions no one had ever bothered to ask before. When she touched my right side, I couldn't hold back a gasp of pain. I'm ordering blood work and an ultrasound, she said, right now. But my parents are not here, she finished firmly, and based on what I'm seeing, that's probably for the best. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of tests, needles, and imaging machines. Ms. Martinez stayed with me, holding my hand during the blood draws, bringing me water when I felt dizzy. Finally, Dr. Chen called us back to her office. Her face was serious as she pulled up my test results on her computer. Emma, she said quietly, you have a severe gallbladder condition that's been left untreated for far too long. The inflammation is extensive, and there are multiple large gallstones. This should have been caught and treated years ago. I felt tears sliding down my cheeks, not from fear or pain, but from relief. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't making it up. Something was actually wrong. Without immediate treatment, this could become life-threatening, Dr. Chen continued. You need surgery, and you need it soon. My parents want. Your parents are no longer in charge of this situation. She cut me off, her voice firm. I'm making a report to Child Protective Services. Medical neglect is a form of abuse, Emma. What they've done, or rather failed to do, is criminal. The word abuse hit me like a physical blow. I'd never thought of it that way. Hadn't allowed myself to think of it that way. They'll be so angry, I whispered. Let them be, Ms. Martinez said, squeezing my hand. You're not facing this alone anymore. Dr. Chen picked up her phone. I'm calling CPS now, and then we're admitting you to the hospital. Your gallbladder needs to come out before it ruptures. As she dialed, I sat there feeling strangely light, despite the fear and uncertainty swirling in my chest. For the first time in years, I didn't have to pretend the pain wasn't real. Didn't have to silence myself to keep the peace. One more thing, Dr. Chen said, covering the phone's mouthpiece. Those detailed notes you kept, they're going to be crucial evidence. You weren't just documenting your symptoms, Emma. You were building a case without even knowing it. I clutched my notebook, thinking of all the nights I'd written in it by flashlight, thinking I was alone. All the times I'd added another entry, another date, another dismissed cry for help. I wasn't alone anymore. And my parents? They were about to learn that some things can't be dismissed with a wave of the hand and accusations of dramatic behavior. The real drama was just beginning. The hospital room door burst open with such force that the nurse jumped. My mother stormed in, my father right behind her, both their faces twisted with a fury I'd never seen before. What is the meaning of this? My mother hissed, waving a paper, probably the CPS notification. How dare you go behind our backs and create this ridiculous situation? Before I could respond, Dr. Chen stepped between them and my hospital bed. Mr. and Mrs. Walker, I'm Dr. Chen. I've admitted Emma for emergency gallbladder surgery due to severe inflammation and multiple gallstones, a condition that, according to her medical records, has gone untreated for years. This is absurd, my father sputtered. She's just seeking attention, like always. We're taking her home right now. No, you're not, a new voice said. A woman in a crisp suit entered the room, followed by 2 police officers. I'm Sandra Morris from Child Protective Services. Emma is currently under protective custody due to medical neglect. I watched my parents' faces change as reality started sinking in. The perfect facade they'd maintained for years was cracking. We've done nothing wrong, my mother insisted, but her voice wavered. She's always making up stories. Stories don't create gallstones. Dr. Chen interrupted, pulling up my ultrasound on a tablet. Stories don't cause dangerously elevated liver enzymes. Your daughter has been in significant pain for years while you dismissed her symptoms. As a mandated reporter, I had no choice but to contact authorities. The CPS worker opened a folder. We have Emma's journal documenting 3 years of complaints and dismissed symptoms. We have witness statements from school staff about multiple episodes of collapse. And now we have medical proof of a condition that could have become fatal if left untreated any longer. My father's face had gone from red to pale. We didn't know. You chose not to know. Ms. Martinez spoke up from where she sat beside my bed. Emma begged for medical attention repeatedly. You chose to ignore her. The police officers stepped forward. Mr. and Mrs. Walker, we need you to come with us to answer some questions. But we're her parents, my mother protested. We have rights. And Emma has the right to proper medical care, Sandra replied firmly. Rights you've denied her for years. Please go with the officers, or they will be forced to escort you out. As they were led away, my mother turned back one last time. Emma, how could you do this to us? To our family? For the first time in years, I didn't shrink under her accusation. How could you ignore my pain for so long? I asked quietly. What kind of parents do that to their child? After they left, the room fell silent except for the steady beep of my heart monitor. Dr. Chen checked my IV, then sat on the edge of my bed. The surgery is scheduled for tomorrow morning, she said gently. You're going to feel so much better afterward. No more constant pain. What happens after? I asked, looking at Sandra. With my parents? There will be an investigation, she explained. Given the evidence, they'll likely face charges for medical neglect. You'll be placed with a temporary guardian. Your Aunt Claire has already agreed to take you in. Aunt Claire, my mother's sister who'd been kept away from our family for years because she asked too many questions. Suddenly, those questions made a lot more sense. It's going to be a different life, Emma, Ms. Martinez said, smiling. One where you're heard, where your health matters, where you don't have to hide your pain. I touched my notebook, thinking of all the entries I'd made, all the nights I'd questioned my own sanity because they'd made me doubt myself so much. They almost convinced me it was all in my head, I whispered. But they didn't succeed. Dr. Chen pointed out. You kept documenting everything. On some level, you knew the truth. Sandra patted my hand. That's over now. Your parents won't be able to dismiss medical issues anymore, yours or anyone else's. Your documentation might even help other kids in similar situations. As I lay back against the pillows, exhausted but relieved, I thought about the years of gaslighting, of being told I was dramatic, of having my pain dismissed as attention-seeking. Tomorrow, the surgeons would remove my gallbladder, but they'd already removed something else. The weight of silence, the burden of doubting myself, the constant fear of not being believed. My parents had always said family problems should stay private, but some secrets need to be exposed to the light. Some stories need to be told. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is speak up and let the truth set you free. As I drifted off to sleep, for the first time in years, I felt safe, protected, believed. The pain hadn't gone away yet, but now it had a name, a solution, and most importantly, witnesses who wouldn't let it be ignored anymore. Sometimes healing starts with being heard.